Germanic swords are not actually made for fencing with blade binds. This situation hardly ever occurs. You do have more blade contacts if you're left-handed. So right-hander versus left-hander does have more blade contacts, even with a big shield, because of the way, because of the setup. Right? If I'm fencing a symmetrical setup, then the side where the opponent is holding his hand weapon, that's the side that I'm guarding with my shield. That's not true in left versus right. So there will be a lot more blade binds. We'll talk about more of that later. Still, it's even though there is not as much binding with blades, unlike in medieval swordplay, it helps to understand your weapon, to be able to use the concepts you have just been using with the spear, with the sword as well. Yesterday we had already seen that if we have a bind like this one, flat against flat, I use flat against flat just for teaching purposes. A bind like that hardly ever occurs in fencing. So if we have a bind like this, the one who turns his edge against the opposing sword has already an advantage. Kannst du ruhig machen? Ja. And that's the... Ja, kannst du, ist okay mit links. So here he's just turning his edge against my flat, and that already gives him an advantage. There's another advantage. Zurück zur Fläche. There's another advantage bringing his sword over mine. Yeah, so I can show that if I bring my sword over his, I also have an advantage. Yeah, and now it's a good idea to marry the both of them. Dein Ellbogen geht zu weit raus, deshalb ist es so anstrengend. Denk dran, dass dein Ellbogen drin ist. Yeah, exactly. So you turn your edge against my flat, and at the same time you bring your sword over. So this is like a slicing motion. It's much like cutting a slice of bread. All right. And this is how you can win binds pretty easily. Also, when you use leverage, as I do here, which is the third criterion, I have a longer lever. I have a longer lever to control his hand than he has. So leverage is working for me as well. Then I'm on control of the sword. Now, a lot of people don't understand that control of the sword is more important than bringing the point online. Yeah? If I wanted to thrust Gefrick into the face and I win this bind, and now I think about thrusting, he can just easily put my... You cannot hit me safely without control of the center. Okay? This is why if you would thrust at me at the same time now, none of us has control of the center, so both of us die. So that means if you are the one, if I win the bind, that means I'm in control. You first have to have control again before you can safely thrust at me. But if I thrust at him too early, so I don't bring my sword out to here. If I thrust at him early, he can simply just put it aside. Now he's in control of the center, now you can start to thrust. Zum Beispiel. Okay, so the control is more important than thinking about the attack you want to do afterwards. The attack is important too, but it works better if you first completely control the opposing sword. Like just now, I won this bind, but I started to gib mir moderaten Gegendruck, so dass wenn mein Druck weggeht, du quasi das Ding automatisch gewinnst. Ne? So I was winning the bind, but I was thinking about hitting him too early, so he could easily win the center himself. If, however, I think about control much more, yeah, then I have a lot more time to go to the target. Vorsichtig. So if I strike from here, kannst ruhig kleben bleiben. Ich meine noch nicht, dass das Ding selber reinschlägt. Ja?
War ich am Ende.
Yeah. So here I have complete control. Now I have a lot of time to strike at him, so even if he sets aside my blade, I will hit him. So even if he parries it. But that's because I made a big effort to win this bind. Looking at him, the bind is mine. So winning these binds is really important too. And this is what we're going to do next. You're welcome to use both hands, do it as a left-hander as well as a right-hander, because it's quite stressful for your arm, and because some of you are not used to doing this a lot, you will use more power and that will be more tiring. But actually, if you try to do it in a very relaxed way, remember elbow position. So even if it's left or right, doesn't matter. It's the elbow has to be in. If the elbow is out, everything becomes extremely difficult. Also, when you have a bind, there should be some pressure. This pressure is the probing of the bind, dieses Reinfühlen. Ja, also wenn ich total schlapp hier bin, dann bedeutet das, dass wenn du reinfühlst, hast du eigentlich die Bindung schon. Yeah, so if the opponent is totally slack, your sensing into the bind already wins you the bind. But we are now thinking about control of the center. Let's give it a try. Let's see how it works. So now you're doing the same thing with one arm and with a sword what you have been doing with a spear. There are a number of differences, but I will address them after the first few rounds. Okay? We do it. Ach, du hast keine. Du kannst hier machen. Das ist okay. Same procedure, out of distance. You have to be out of distance. Yeah. And it's good to have a long distance. Don't start too close when you train. Don't start so close when you train, because now I'm already in distance, right? Some reenactors have a habit of hitting swords before they start to fight. This doesn't work with the concepts I'm teaching, because if you can actually hit the sword, then the fight has already begun. So I advise you to start from minimum 5 meters away, better even 7 meters away, so you have some time to see what is coming. Smiling, and it's all about control of the center. Keep looking at me, don't look at the weapon. Now he's got the center, so I have to do something to win the center back. If it becomes inconvenient with the hand, you have to change it. You can also, he's got the center here, right? So I have to do something against him. If in a situation like that, I like to rebind on the inside. Lass mal deine Klinge da außen. I just like to rebind on the inside. Now the center is mine. Ja, okay. Spannen wir uns nochmal, machen ein bisschen weiter. Zu mir gucken, nicht zu den Waffen. Nicht zu den Waffen. Wenn du ans Zentrum denkst, ja, also möglichst die Waffe so zwischen uns hältst. If you align your body behind your weapon, yeah, then your weapon will always be in the center most of the time. Yeah? So look at the opponent and make sure that there's something in between you and the opponent. Okay, at this point here, it's a bit, you're not really in control of the center. You're just wet here. Some people, you have to see that. We had that with spears as well. He's controlling the weapon here, but he's not controlling the center. So in a real fight, I could just simply go in. Now I control the center, and I start wrestling here. Yeah, so the center is more important. So just think about the center. This also means that if my sword is out there, it's not so important for him to have control here, because I'm totally out of the center. Because this is just an exercise and not a fight, it comes to the situations. Because in a true fight, if you were able to do that, you would now just strike to my head. No, you can lose the bind, because I cannot do anything with my sword from here. If he takes the shortest route, he will always be faster. What can I do? I'm still, he's in the process of pressing down my sword. I work against that, and as he strikes at me, I will probably accelerate his own weapon. Yeah, so geometry is important. Let's just give it a try, and then I'm going to give you some more tips. Okay? Anybody who knows about fighting with blade binds is welcome to help his partner. This is much more difficult than with the spears.